Hello and welcome to another episode for the love of MotoGP. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my good friend and fellow MotoGP nerd, Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Tim.
How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, mate, I can't complain. Yeah. The lockdown's still here. I'm still at work. The Wi-Fi is great. We're actually recording, and we're recording over video as well, which is a real special treat for us. Yeah.
Normally when we Skype call, we don't even bother. No, I don't want to look at him. Jesus.
Oh, if I'd have known that's what it was, mate, I thought it was just because the Wi-Fi was crap. But now there's a deep-seated hatred for the way I look, which has upset me a little. I'm not going to lie.
Hey, never. I want to see the dreadlocks.
Yeah, I am a bit of a walking stereotype, really. But there we go. It is what it is. Obviously, we're still no racing. We're still on lockdown. There's been a little bit of news, but the main point of this show today is we've got quite a nice interview lined up.
We have a very nice guest coming on with us today.
Yeah, it's the one and only. I guess I thought actually initially that it would only be UK viewers that would know who he was, but it turns out that the world should know who he is after his work with Dorna and BT Sport.
Yeah. He is known worldwide and well respected within the MotoGP paddock.
So it's we had Gavin Emmett coming on briefly. We just need to get on Skype and give him a call. And I guess we haven't really got anything else to say apart from that. So if we just dive straight into the call, then
we'll get him on and we'll have a chat.
Yeah, have a chat. Perfect. So I guess we will see you guys on the other side.
Aye.
And here we are with Gavin Emmett of currently BT Sport fame, I suppose you'd say. But for those people out there who might not know who you are, Gavin, do you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself?
So I'm the reporter, co-presenter, commentator, general hanger about on BT Sport in MotoGP. I've worked in MotoGP now this will be my 20th season actually. It would have been if we'd have been able to get there. So, and I've been in that role for most of that time. I was also communications director for MotoGP for a few years in the late noughties, and so have been heavily involved for the last 20 years.
Awesome stuff. So you are quite a commonplace around the paddock then, and I guess everyone knows who you are, and you know who everyone is coming in and out.
Yeah, that's true. I do. I've seen a lot of these riders now, apart from Valentino Rossi, who's a year younger than me. I've seen most of them come through from being, seeing their first races, seeing when they started. And it's weird having seen the likes of Jorge Lorenzo, Dani Pedrosa start, and now having seen them retire. That's when you know that you're getting old. That's when you know that you've been there far too long and you're part of the furniture. My actual first job in Dorna, which is how I started, was interviewing the riders that might not necessarily have got the biggest coverage, because it was, you'd be doing interviews for the TV channels who weren't on site.
Okay.
Right. And so you talk to the youngsters and that kind of thing. So you got to know quite a lot of the riders from being very young, which was quite good when they obviously make it all the way through to the top.
I guess that helps. You've already got a relationship with them that way, haven't you?
Exactly. And I speak Spanish and French and Italian, so you get to know them just that little bit on a different level. You get to know them in their home languages,
Yeah.
That must make a difference.
Honestly, it really does. Myself and Matt Roberts at the time in the early noughties, I think there's not that many British or English speaking journalists. I say English speaking because there's American and South African and Australian journalists there. But I think we're the only two that were multilingual in a sense that you could actually. We used to do interviews in the people's home language, in their mother tongues.
Okay.
So you would tend to get a little bit more because you've heard MotoGP riders and the youngsters do struggle with their English sometimes. So to be able to converse with them in a way that they just open up that little bit more.
Yeah,
and I think
they
remember you then as that foreigner who can speak a bit of the lingo.
It must be nicer for them as well to get asked something actually in their own language and just flow into it and not have to think and just go with it.
Exactly it. That it's I mean, anyone who's tried to converse in a foreign language on holiday or anything like that knows it's a bit of a nervous time. It's not always the easiest, is it? It's not masses about, you get nervous. So you can imagine doing that, and you're actually talking about yourself and your career and talking about how the race has gone in a high pressured environment. So if you get it in your mother tongue, then it just makes it that bit easier, doesn't it?
For the younger riders as well, that must be like a breath of fresh air. They're not got, they're still learning probably the foreign language and.
Yeah, I mean, I always used to encourage them massively, and knowing them when they're kids, they do generally have that little bit of more respect than the older ones do, who know that you're only a journalist and it don't really matter what you think or what you say. But chatting to the kids, you'd encourage them to speak English, knowing that it's going to do their career a lot of good if they were able to speak to more journalists or more people around the world they can speak to, the better. And I think people have got that now. They didn't used to. There were some riders who flatly refused. I remember like Hector Barber and Andrea Iannone was always one who never really wanted to speak English, but eventually you keep, hammering away. And I think Hector Barber, when he came and did BSB, suddenly realised that he had to learn something. Even then, I'm not sure. The fact he went around with knob on his hat. What a great look was it? What was an awful sponsor.
Bless him.
It makes for fun pictures now, though.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it writes its own headline, doesn't it?
Exactly. I've forgotten all about that, actually. That's brilliant. Cracking.
So as someone who is desperately trying to learn Spanish at the moment, I am really struggling. So I'm super impressed that you are, or would you say you're fluent in the 3 other languages aside from English?
I'm Spanish, definitely. I used to be fluent in French. I've got degrees in a degree in Spanish and French.
Okay.
So, and I lived and worked in France previously, but that falls away when you live somewhere and you're surrounded by people who speak Spanish. But I always used to keep it up, whether it be with Olivier Jacques or Arnaud Vincent, more recently Randy de Punier. But Randy de Punier's English was too good, and Sylvain Ginterly spoke English better than me, so that was always. And my Italian's up and down. It depends how. My mum's married to an Italian. If I spend time over there, then it picks up a bit. But if I'm away, like now, if I were to go back into the paddock now, it'd be proper sketchy. So that's Italian I've picked up in the paddock. But once you speak Spanish and French, it's a similar sort of thing. So yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah. But my Spanish is, I have no qualms about speaking in any situation.
Oh, good stuff. That's super useful for you. And is it just you, or is like the rest of the squad? Can they speak it?
No, I don't think so. What usually happens, and this is quite funny, that is actually another one of my jobs, is when we're in. So you imagine we go to 4 Spanish rounds. We go to Argentina. We go to Italy twice a year. I become team translator, and in Le Mans as well. I become the one. Susie obviously speaks French because she lives over there. She does well with that, and a couple of people speak bits of Italian here and there. But yeah, I can. What's this on the menu? Honestly, if any of my crew or any of our crew were listening, or any of the other talent, they'd sort of say, "Yeah, that is true. I do become team." They hand me the menu and it's like, right, go on, you order. You know what we're getting.
Do they then buy you your meal as a thank you? Because that's what I'd be demanding, I think.
I've never actually thought of that. I should have though, shouldn't I? I've missed a trick on that. I've missed a trick.
Yeah, all those rounds, all those free dinners you've been missing out on.
Oh, as a good Yorkshireman, I feel I've let down my county.
When you get back out there, so right, new policy.
Exactly. Post-COVID rules. I get a tick for this.
Yeah, just don't point any angry emails our way. We don't want to deal with that for suggesting the idea.
First port call.
Talk to these boys. Their fault. Oh dear.
So obviously with the BT Sport crew, like they're pretty much all made of, except for yourself and Susie, all ex-racers now, isn't it? Now Julian's gone as well.
Yeah, and that's good. I think that's a wealth of experience, and the beauty of it is everyone's got their little niche, everyone's got their little corner that they sort of deal in, and so I think that's why it all slots in fairly nicely. You know, everyone has a slightly different take on it. Whether Keith's is from a previous era, but he's got that voice that can make any race exciting. So that's his sort of area. And then Hodgie's got, I suppose, more of a modern take on things, but still involved in management. So he always has a look at things about how riders' career is progressing and looking at that sort of side. Michael Laverty's a tech guru. He's a bit of one of my mates actually came to a race last year and saw him and said, "Oh, here he is, the boffin." And so that stuck. The boffin. Colin's obviously Colin, and he's got this laid back view on everything. And yeah, so I slot in as the one generally as the and Susie obviously is keeping us all in check, basically. Telling the story, and that's a bit like myself. We're journalists, really. We're there to get the story out of those guys. That's our job, is to find the angles, find the stories, and find the little quirks and question marks here and there. And so I think it all slots in quite nicely, having a bit of a variety of people, a variety of careers, and I think it doesn't faze me at all to be surrounded by world champions, which we are, and race winners and that sort of thing, and vast tech experience. I'm not a massive tech bod at all. I'm more of a story journalist, really. That's what I could consider myself, a sports journalist, really, because I do work on other as well. So I'm not massively tech, although I do enjoy it and do get it all generally. As long as Michael explains it slowly, then I'm all right. But that's my area of expertise. I used to leave that to Julian or to Emlove.
It definitely, like watching everyone on telly, it definitely seems like a team that works well together. Everyone, like you say, has got their niche, and you all gel together really, really well.
Everyone gets on. Honestly, what you see on screen is definitely, well, I don't know, you might see something different on screen, but what comes across on screen is how it is, and we share a lot of information. A lot of places you might work in the past, people would have their own little tidbits here and there, but generally it'll be a case of we'll sit in a commentary box together, two might be commentating, but there's three other people in the back of the booth chipping in and saying, "Oh, look at this," or pointing to a timing screen, say, "Oh, look at that on the screen there." And so it is a really good team effort, actually. And the whole point of the whole shtick that we've got, I suppose, on BT is that we do everything with a smile. I remember that being told when we came through the door. We do everything with a smile and a bit of a sense of humour, because we enjoy sport and we're all about loving the sport, but we do it in depth, and we try and cover every angle that we can and try and get across the quality, the enjoyment, and the depth of it. I think we do not to blow smoke up our own arses, but we do a decent job of that. I think
absolutely.
There's always things you can improve. There's always things that people will see differently through their own from their own points of view. But I think we try not to be biased, try to be fairly neutral, try and be generally quite positive about the sport. And I think we've silenced a few at the start who were questioning whether they should be paying to watch the sport, but that's just the way it is at the moment in TV.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And I think it comes across very well. I think it always comes across as you're a very cohesive unit, and it works nicely. And I think that the whole broadcast over the entire race weekends is, in my opinion, one of the best sport broadcasts that I watch. I'm a massive Formula One fan. Yeah, I definitely don't sit there and watch practice, and I will watch qualifying, but the practice isn't interesting as such, whereas you guys keep it light and keep it good all the way through.
I think that's partly the sport as well, though, because I watch Formula One. I used to watch it fairly avidly, but I don't so much, obviously, because of what I do. You spent 20 weekends a year out on the road. You don't want to spend another Sunday or whole weekend doing that. But obviously, you watch because, in a way, they're competitors. We don't see it as competition. It's not like anyone thinks of it like that. But sometimes, obviously, their practice is an hour and a half sometimes, and there's not too much action. And you feel like people are generally going through the motions, like they already know what they're setting up and what they're doing. Whereas in the bikes, you got 45 minutes, and you've got Moto3, and then you've got Moto2, and then you're back again. And we only get 5 or 10 minutes between each session, and it is quick fire. lots going on, and it's a bit like that in a race, isn't it? It's a 40-minute race. It's a sprint, and you don't have to waste your whole weekend following it. Yeah, I don't know. I think it is a different approach in both sports. A bit more wham bam in motorcycle racing. I hope that's not saying anything about us.
Not at all.
No, not at all. You did mention briefly about people getting excited about the races and it being stimulating, and Keith obviously managing to make it very excited. And we have seen you, and in the greatest race, this was something you did joke about, was your 2009 Catalonia, and getting so excited about that. And that was a real joy to watch again.
How many times did they use that bit of commentary in the greatest? Because obviously we had the whole full race week one, and then we obviously replayed it a couple of times, and then it won Barcelona 2009. Yeah, I really got excited that day. It was, and obviously because we knew it was a fantastic race at the time. And so I don't think I ever got that. I mean, I was commentating on the Laguna Seca one that was in the final. I definitely didn't get as excited then. That was a year previous. But it was the build-up, the atmosphere at that racetrack that day was unbelievable. Over 100,000 people in there. And you just knew there was so much riding on it. And the tension between the two in the garage. And half the fans were there for Rossi, half were there for Lorenzo. It felt like that anyway, and it just felt like one of those culminating moments. But I hate listening to it, honestly. I don't think I'd do that again, because I just don't think I would. Just because you got to learn to pick, and obviously you're only peaking at the final corners. That is the whole point. It just went a bit beyond. It's like when you speak too closely into a microphone and it goes too loud, then it starts distorting. So it was a bit like that. But hey, still, it just honestly, all I've ever tried to do, I've always wanted to be a commentator, actually, when it was from being a little kid. But it's the way I've always wanted to commentate is through just conveying how much I'm enjoying it, you know. And I am a fan. Ultimately, I'm not an ex-racer, like you said. I'm not that. I am a fan who's loving it. And I think if you live it and breathe it, like a fan would be living and breathing it without going overboard like I did that day, then you are connecting with the fans, aren't you? You're sort of feeling what they're feeling. So it's that,
like you said, it's passion. What the sport is all about. Tim and I have spoken about it before. You see, Mugello, you see Catalunya, you see all the races, you see the Italian fans, the Spanish fans. It is all about energy and exuberance and just loving it. Absolutely. That to me is watching on telly. I can remember watching that race live, and literally jumping up and down on the sofa as a kid, just like going nuts. And just like the commentary as well was brilliant. Just from my point of view.
I'm not sure. I wouldn't really have been over here until recently, because I suppose people back then would have been listening to BBC, so it would have been Charlie Cox and Steve Parrish, or to Toby and Jules over on Eurosport, I expect. But myself and Nick actually went out in a lot of places. We obviously went out on the official website, but we did a lot of the stuff. So in the US, people would be most familiar with that commentary. In Australia, in Asia and Africa, where it used to go out in the main, that's what you'd hear. If you were outside of the UK, basically, you would hear myself and Nick. So it was quite funny. And then when people were seeing that race again, some people were saying, "Oh, it's just different commentary. I remember it with Toby and Jules or whatever." But that was the official commentary, which is why that's what they used on the greatest race.
Okay, because I think the first time I heard it was on was it Fastest, the Ewan McGregor narrated film? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's been on. Yeah, and we got to meet them, and I remember chatting to Brad Pitt, who did what was the one he did, the last one,
Hitting the Apex.
Yes. They used a lot of commentary of ours on that. For that one, I think that was around the 2011-2012 season, wasn't it? Something around there. So that they always used it because Mark Neal, who directed Faster, Fastest, and all those Dr. Tornado and all those ones, he's British, lives in Spain, but it's mainly for an American market. Was the idea of those, because there wasn't, coverage over there was generally flag to flag. Just had to start the race through to the end. That was it. No build up, no chat. Although they have changed it recently, and while I was there, we started working on it. But yeah, it was in all those movies, all our commentary.
Yeah. And they are great films. I think those films as well make the whole MotoGP world much more accessible for people. I know when I first started watching, I was watching films like those and like avidly just digesting as much content as I could, and they are really handy to get people the storylines.
I forget they exist. I do forget they exist, those films, because I've seen them all. Obviously, I was involved in a couple of them quite heavily, but yeah. I do. You do forget they do tell a good story. They do tell a decent story when you watch them. If you're not, and they are a good way of bringing people in who might not necessarily know the sport.
Yeah, that's it. So, what would you say back to obviously the excitement of the races? What is the most exciting races you'd have seen from working in the paddock? And
well, a lot that came up in the greatest race. Barcelona 2009 was one. Estoril 2006 sticks in my mind as one which we obviously had when Nicky Hayden got taken out by Danny Pedrosa, and then Tony Elias beat Rossi. And I remember being up. I wasn't commentating. I was around at that time as communications director. So I was in Parc Ferme for those kinds of races. And I remember just the tension in that. At the time, it seemed like Nicky Hayden was, had a really good chance of winning this title, and it would have been something different after Rossi had won 5 championships in a row. Maybe we have got a change in the guard, and then suddenly it seemed like, oh no, that's not going to happen. And I don't know. I remember the tension in the paddock at the time. That's one that sticks in my mind, and the fact that Danny Pedrosa was this golden child, but he knocked out the kid who was about to be champion, and Honda hadn't really supported Nicky that year. And I remember there was a lot around there. Sepang 2015 was one as well, with the clash between Rossi and Marquez, that I remember the paddock was buzzing. And at that time, BT weren't on site apart from myself and Neil. And we were over there and we were trying to say, you've got to stay on air. You have to stay on. And we managed to get another hour or an hour and a half or something like that, because all the fallout was that we were like, you've got to keep going. You can't just go off here. You just could cut the tension with a knife. It was one of those where I remember it so vividly, being around and about the back of those. So they're two that stick in the mind, apart from that Barcelona one, definitely.
Yeah, I remember that whole 2015 season just being incredible. The whole season felt like that tension from sitting on the sofa. It felt the tension of the season and the build-up and like the Australia race and just everything. That whole season, I think that is the best season of racing that I've watched since I've been watching MotoGP.
Yeah, so it is up there. So actually, when we do the greatest years, we're going back to 1992, first of all. And I think 2015 is going to be the second year. We're going to go through the story from start to finish. So it's going to be a bit like not a season review. That would be harsh, because we're creating all new content. We're going to be speaking to people, key people, like for 92. And then we're going to do 2015 because it's one that sticks in people's minds. For me, 2006 was the greatest season because of the twists and turns, and Nicky won the title by winning 2 races, and we forget Marco Melandri won 3 races that year, and Valentino Rossi actually won 5, I think it was, back in 2006. So there were so many different players at the game that year. Danny Pedrosa won races in his rookie season. Casey Stoner burst onto the scene and got a pole position, I think it was, in Qatar, I can't remember, it was early on in the year anyway, and Turkey was right at the front. So it had it was like a changing of the guard, you felt, and it was one of those where it was up and down every year. But 2015, 2006 are the two that stick in my mind. Yeah, seasons. Although, when was the one with 9 different winners? 2016.
Yeah, it's the year Jack Miller won, wasn't it? Aston?
Exactly, and Cal won at Brno. That year was one of those where you think, oh my God, I can't believe someone else is winning. This is ridiculous. This wouldn't happen in any other championship, I don't think. So that was another one that sticks in mind.
I remember that season. We were taking bets on how many people, where are we going to get anywhere else? We had every podcast we did was like, are we going to get someone else? And that was all we were talking about.
Yeah.
And we were all, we couldn't believe it that it got to 9. And then ever since then, it's like, how many people are going to win this year? And it's been 5 or 6, I think it was, wasn't it? A couple of years ago, or whatever. So, Yeah, they stick in the mind, I have to say.
Fantastic. And what would you say, like even outside of racing, in your time in the paddock, what is whether it is the racing or it's just with people from the paddock, what is your best story that you're allowed to tell us, really? Because I'm sure there's plenty of off the record stories that we're just not getting to.
Oh man, I mean, I've just told one on the podcast we're doing at the moment with James Tosland, which was where Vern Troyer, Mini-Me, fell out of a mobility scooter and landed plumb on his head outside a bar. But that was probably one that's that was one which was entertaining, but that was because it was a drunk Vern Troyer. So many over the years, a lot of them actually involved laughing at Nick Harris's expense, because we used to have a lot of fun with him. It was he couldn't ever see in the dark, couldn't Nick? He had some eye condition, so the amount of times myself and Matt Roberts left him in the middle of a car park in the middle of nowhere, which is cruel, but also at the same time quite funny because some of the expletives he'd come out with. So over the years, I don't know, one of the ones that I remember that's entertaining of a self-deprecating nature. Oh, someone's trying to call me. Just 1 second, I'll turn that off. No self-deprecating nature was I presented the awards ceremony at Valencia at the end of the year a few times, and 1 year I was about to go on stage. So bear in mind, it's the end of season gala awards. A lot of people in there tuxedos and all dressed up to the nines, and I'm presenting, about to go out on stage, and my trousers, I had to put on my the sound pack anyway. Okay. So I've pulled my trousers back up and they've ripped. This is 2 minutes before going out on stage, live TV, and they've ripped from my crotch right down to my knee.
Oh no.
Nice.
They were brand new, and obviously something was wrong with them. Not that I wasn't too fat for them, honestly. But something defective. That sort of thing doesn't happen. And so I did the whole of an awards ceremony with the inside of my trousers gaffer taped up. But obviously there were still gaps. It was gaffer tape. I couldn't move throughout the whole of this awards ceremony. I was supposed to be there and moving, and I couldn't. I just had to stand still and just hope that my trousers didn't give way. That was one of a bit of entertainment value anyway for my own stupidity.
That's fantastic.
One of my favourite stories that I always tell actually was Hurricane Ike, Indianapolis 2011, no, maybe 2009 actually, 2009, 8 or 9. Whenever the 250 race got cancelled, Marco Simoncelli was on pole. I remember that. Okay. And Hurricane Ike was going through. And anyway, they had to cancel the race, and I was in commentary. And what happened when you're in commentary? We were in there 5-6 hours the whole day. But in moments like this of communication crises, because I was the communications director, I had to come out and put action plans together, that sort of thing. So at least to leave Nick Harris by himself. And so many people won't have heard this, but the commentary was just going. And it's what you call a fill-in TV. We had to do it at Silverstone when everything got rained off a couple of years. You just talking, and it's all right when you're on BT and you've got 3 pundits and you can bring in Cal Crutchlow, but when you're sat in a commentary booth like Nick was for himself, just going on, and he was just talking endlessly for an hour and a half, and it kept going. And anyway, the Hurricane's whipping things up, and they're starting to collect things from around pit lane, and someone was walking down pit lane with this sort of pole with a placard coming off it, and Nick, obviously now run out of things to say, almost going delirious, goes, "Are my eyes deceiving me? Or is that a white horse in pit lane?" I think it is. There's a white horse in pit lane. Surely not. I hadn't heard it at the time. And then someone texted me at the time and said, "Oh my God, you'll never believe. You've got to go back and help Nick. He thinks there's horses in pit lane." And it was someone walking along with a placard, but there was so much rain on the camera and so much chaos going on that he thought they'd let horses into pit lane for some strange reason. And it's just one of those things that he never lived down. When he retired, we all sent him a picture of a white horse.
Bless him.
Suddenly they started letting horses into the paddock. It's obviously never happened.
Yeah, that's the way they cancel races in the States. They just let the horses in.
Exactly. The FA Cup final, when was it? 1924, whatever, the white horse event.
Oh dear. Oh, brilliant.
That's it. And so, along with obviously the best story, who in general, I guess, is the person you can go to for the best interviews you think in the paddock right now? And then I guess, who is your best interview of your 20 years?
Oh, so many to mention. For good interviewees, Danilo Petrucci is always good. Sometimes speaks a bit too long, but I like his expressive nature and I like how he is. And Jack Miller is always good for a laugh, for a bit of fun. Jack's good for that. Some people are hard to interview, it's true. But do you know what? Do you know what interviews I remember in terms of best interviews? Are actually it's quite a sad tale, I suppose, but are the ones of the likes of Marco Simoncelli or Shoya Tomizawa that they're no longer with us. I remember them so vividly now. I don't know why that is, because there's a lot of interviews that I've forgotten over the years. But I remember Shoya Tomizawa winning in Qatar. I remember sitting the opposite side of the desk, and it's not a sit-down interview, not a 20-minute interview, just a minute of asking him how he felt. And he didn't expect to win his first Grand Prix, and he'd won it, and he was just the biggest beaming smile. Couldn't believe what he was, couldn't believe that he just won a race, and that was amazing. And I remember doing an interview with Marco Simoncelli that it was in Australia on the top of the Phillip Island building. It was when we used to do After the Flag. And it was the week before he won the title, I think in Malaysia. Around then, he'd either just won it or was about to win the title. We were talking about, and I just remember it really clearly. And they become really important interviews to you. The fact that you've been able to share these special moments with people. I know he'd won the race in Australia. So it was 250s. He was wearing a Gilera top. So it must have been, when he won in that class. So, those are the ones that stick in my mind rather than any, because you've done thousands of interviews. They're the ones that actually now stick in my mind. Or I remember speaking to Daijiro Kato. I was in Suzuka. They used to have a preseason test the week before the season started there. And I'd been over in Japan for the test and stayed over there for a week. But I remember he'd already been obviously in 500s for a couple of years. But, he was getting a four-stroke MotoGP bike that year, the Fortuna Honda team, I think it was. And I remember he properly just started to learn English. And I felt like I'd been interviewing him for a couple of years and got to know him, but never been able to speak the same language. We always had a sort of translator in between us. But finally, he learned a couple of words of English. And I remember thinking, I think he's an amazing rider and he's such a nice kid. But finally, able to converse a little bit more with him because he had such a quirky little manner. So, those are the ones that stick in my head, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Someone's given me a bit of gold, which has happened over the years. But they're the ones that come to mind. Yeah.
Fair enough. Right. So I think we'll dive into a quick chat about this season if we get one, and just some ideas throughout, if that's all right with you, if we're not keeping you for too long.
No, don't you worry about it. Yeah.
So I guess the most important question is, in your opinion, is there a chance we're going to get a season?
In my opinion, because that's all it can be, is that there is a chance, which is like a definitely maybe, isn't it? That's one of those, it's just moron. There is 100% a chance. I don't know how big that chance is, which is a really bad answer. But look, on the greatest race on Sunday, when we recorded the most recent one, obviously we had Carmelo Espeleta, the big cheese at dawn, and he was staying there looking at July as a possibility to start it, looking at Europe, trying to do maybe back-to-back races at the same track, that kind of thing. And actually, it filled me with a bit more confidence. I'm definitely a glass half full sort of person. I'm an eternal optimist, and so I'm always looking on the positive side for the sport, because I love the sport and I want the sport to survive and thrive. And so, in that respect, I think there is a possibility. I'm also quite cynical, in that we know what it's like here in the UK, and that is replicated throughout the world. Other countries are having quarantine measures. You've got to spend 14 days in quarantine when you even go there. And all these things in every single individual country has to be taken into account. So it might be all very well for, if Dorno, I know, is speaking to the Italian, I think it's the Olympic Committee or whoever, the Italian Sports Committee, same for Spain. and they're talking to them about the possibility of having these races. But then that's got to allow people to come in from the UK, and it's got to allow Jack Miller to come over from Australia, and it's got to allow, do you know what I mean? Many people. It's got to allow Japanese from Honda to come in. They've gone on to a state of emergency and lockdown again. There's parts of Japan that have gone under for a second time. So I don't think anyone can say for certain.
No.
Well, obviously they can't say for certain, but I do think the one thing about Dorna, and I've worked there, I know this is their bottom line. Ultimately, they'll be doing everything they can, but they've changed a lot in recent years. They've got a lot more safety savvy. They listen a lot more to the teams and listen a lot more to the riders. They do see it as a family that sort of all have to have their parts to say, whether it's from the manufacturers. Yes, everyone's got their own agendas, whether it be manufacturers and whether it be sponsors or whether it be circuits and promoters, that kind of thing. Everyone's got their own agenda, and the teams, of course, and they've got their own businesses to survive, but they'll want to do what's best for the sport. And I think they've also realised how they look. They are a big player in sport, especially in Spain and Italy. How they look is important to sponsors, hence Moto-E, hence them doing a bit more as regards the environment. However much a lot of people who watch the sport aren't that bothered, they know to keep sponsors, to keep people interested, then you need to be on the right side of history. So same goes for this. However much people might not agree with what they do on certain things and might think that it's a bit of a drop in the ocean, it's now thought about in terms of this is good for business or it's good for the sport to be doing these certain things. So I know they won't. I hope they don't take unnecessary risk, which I thought Qatar showed.
Yeah.
When they kept the races going of the ones they could. They tried everything they could to try to charter flights. Can we do this? Can we? We can't. Right, we're going to cancel it straight off. And I thought they did a good job there, actually, of listening to people and taking decisive action. Where Formula One was going on in Australia, and we were all discussing it at the time. We were saying, can't happen. I can't believe they haven't called it. We know what's happening in Italy. There's people got to go from Italy, but we've already sent people out early. And I was just thinking at the time, no, that's not the message. And I think Formula One have erred on that. I think they've made a couple of mistakes in terms of the message that the sport sends out to people. Yeah. To your man and woman in the street. I think it sent out the wrong message on a couple of occasions. So, look. That's a really long answer way of saying I don't know, isn't it? but I could see something happening mid-August onwards. That seems to be the consensus around people around Austria. That's what a lot of people have said, because Austria have done so well under the way they've tested and the way they've locked down. Now they're releasing lockdown a little bit, so I could sort of see something happening there. But I think it can only go ahead if everyone can get there. I hope they don't do a half-baked, there's no Japanese, there's no Australia. I don't know. I hope they don't do something like that. Every rider and every team has got to be able to get there. Absolutely. Otherwise, the integrity goes for me a little bit. Unless they take away World Championship and they just have kind of match races, which would be fine if they were to take away a Monaco. Look, we're going to put on MotoGP races, but this isn't counted towards a World Championship. Fine. But I think everyone's got to be available to get there. And who knows where we're going to be in 2 months. Look, he's talking about the end of July. Yeah. Camilo, that's 3 months from now. And we've seen, God, I don't even know what week we're on lockdown. No one knows what the date is. So things are changing daily, aren't they?
Yeah, they really are.
Yeah.
I mean, weeks feel like months at the moment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That is one of the question everyone's answers, but it is the question no one can answer. It's so, like you say, up in the air. No one knows it's going to go. Fingers crossed, we'll get something towards the end of the year. I
think we will in some way, whether it'll be 5 rounds, whether it'll be 10 rounds, whether it'll be more. I can't see it, but yeah, I just think they will, because it's so important. Business-wise for Dorna, but business-wise for the sport. I've had a lot of people saying there's a lot more important things, and there are, without a doubt, there's tenfold more important things. However, to the 3,000 people who travel the world in MotoGP, and I'm one of them. I'm not being paid at the moment. I don't get paid for, I'm not. And most people in the sport are freelance contractors or will have 1-year contracts with teams. Mechanics have the same. Nobody generally is on a permanent deal generally in there. And even if they are, they're working for teams that aren't getting sponsorship money paid into them, aren't getting TV money paid. Although, to be fair to Dorna, that's one thing they're doing. They're paying it out. So there's a lot of people's livelihoods are depending on it. A lot of my crew, for example, our crew we work with, they're cameramen and sound guys, and there is no work at the moment. So
no.
I just think there's a lot tied into it. So they'll do everything they can, and they just got to do it with testing in mind and being safe in mind.
Yeah, so it's actually like you describe it like that, and it shows it's much bigger than us just sitting on our sofas at home wishing we had something that wasn't Netflix to watch right now.
It's true. It is true. But it's also about being responsible, isn't there? You've got an event where you have to have a mini hospital on site. How responsible is that when hospitals are overflowing in certain parts of the world?
Yeah.
So there's that side of things to look at, and that's what I mean about the message. They've got to get the sport has to look right. Has to be doing things properly. For there are more important things. So that's the fine line that you've got to find.
Yeah,
definitely a fine balance as well. Everyone has to be kept safe.
Yeah, it's true.
Exactly. And you did mention the chance of running races as non-championship events. Do you think that would have an effect on the racing? Would people be riding for less willing to put it all on the line? Or this kind of period of no racing, is that going to make some of them want to go out and just like really go for it and just try and get the wins? And
I don't think anything will diminish their competitive spirit. I suppose it depends what's at the end of the line. Is there anything, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's, what am I riding for here? But why do we go racing anyway then? I mean, do they really want a trophy, or at the end, they're not going for the bit of a brick from wherever, are they? They've got a plaque on it. They're not racing for that, are they? They're racing for pride. They're racing to win. And when you're being competitive against the best in the world, that's what you want to do and prove. That's ultimately what it is, isn't it? Rather than I think anyone's doing it for the money. It becomes a byproduct. But ultimately, why do we have racing? So I don't think it would diminish it too much. I think some people might throw a bit more caution to the wind in terms of racing, but still they're putting their lives on the line. I don't know. As far as I see it, I think there'd still be competitive races, and they'd still enjoy it. What would you, if you're a team though, and what exposure is it getting? Would you put full weight behind it? I don't know.
Again, another hard one to call. It's just, I say, exposure, sponsors, getting people on track, seeing what's going on, riders' competitiveness. So many answers, so many questions. I don't know. I could be completely lost. You could go on for all night. It's just
that's it. There's so many different aspects to it, aren't there? And until it becomes clear how you get out of lockdown, and then once you're out of lockdown, is it working? Have you got enough testing to keep people, isolated who need to be isolated, and so on and so forth? Or is there going to be a second wave? Is there another spike, and you have to go back into lockdown? Until that happens, you don't know, do you?
no.
Yeah, it's all a bit of a waiting game, isn't it, at the moment?
I think Carmelo said it himself, didn't he? Until there's a vaccine, things won't be normal.
Yeah.
I think it's 100%, 95% certain that any races would have to be behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So
that was a very, like, watching the Moto2, Moto3 in Qatar. That was a very odd thing, looking at like the podium with empty grandstands.
I think it's no different really for Qatar. They don't really always get that many people in there, to be honest. But yes, it was a weird thing. But ultimately, the race experience, does it change that much for the majority of viewers, which the majority are on screens around the world? I think it was not like football for me, where all you can hear is someone kicking a pig's bladder. At least in the bikes, you've got your engines, you've got your roar, you've got your atmosphere. in with it. That's where Moto E struggles, actually, doesn't it? Even though you've got lots of fans on site, the one issue with Moto E, because the racing's actually quite good, I have to say, these big old heavy bikes aren't easy, but lack of buzz that's there. That's where you need a crowd, isn't it? That's where you need.
Exactly.
I've watched Formula E, and I've said, because the same people who make BT's MotoGP coverage, North One, make Formula E programs. And I remember having the conversation with the bosses there and saying something needs to be done to create that atmosphere, to create something, whether it's fake noise coming out of the cars or, I don't know, they could have a horn. I don't know. So it's something, because the silence for me is, and I know you can hear brakes, but anyway, I don't know how much the engine-based bikes would miss the crowd. I don't know. Obviously, you want fans to be there, but if people can still watch great racing from home safely, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's fair. And you did also mention the idea of double headers going on. And we've seen F1. Steve is very used to me bringing everything back to F1, so I apologise, but I do tend to do that a lot. But we've seen F1 talking about trying to run some tracks in reverse, and there's some backlash. People saying it can't be done, it's too expensive. Is there anywhere on the MotoGP calendar, do you think, that potentially you could run backwards, or is it just not feasible for runoffs, etc.?
Yeah, not feasible now. Misano obviously was turned around, but it was turned around for safety reasons in the first place because of the back. You can't move the gravel trap any further back. They wouldn't do that. All tracks have to be homologated. Part of the reason they've already knocked Finland off is they can't even, Franco Uncini, who would be one of the delegation going out, they can't leave Italy, so they can't go and homologate the track. They can't go and say this place is safe to go and race. Because it's not finished. They haven't finished it, all the track inspections, that kind of thing, and they need to do it so far in advance. So as far as I'm concerned, they'll look at any option, but I don't think that's one. If that makes sense. So back-to-back races, double headers. I'm not sure if they do double headers because that's part of their shtick. They want to just have one-off Grand Prix. But if it got desperate, they might.
Yeah.
I think they see double header as a World Superbike thing.
Yeah.
But now Dorna are in charge of both. I'm not sure how much that matters. But I also think there's a way of working, a way a Grand Prix works, and it's a Grand Prix and it's special and it's a one-off. There's something mystique and the prestige of that sort of thing. Go back there. I think what they do is they run races 7 days apart and hope there's different conditions.
Okay.
That's what works. Like you said, get back to what you said, like the mystique of it. It does work the Friday when we're at work and we've got like practice on record and you come home in the evening, you watch it, and then you get Saturday come on with your qualifying and everything. You one race on the Sunday and it just builds. It comes up and it builds to it. That's perfect.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that MotoGP pride themselves on is the history and tradition and the tradition of the sport, which goes back to, a year longer than Formula One. They're always proud about saying it. Original road motorsport world championship. Anyway, they always say it's about that, and that's something you can't quantify, but that comes from it being a Grand Prix. It is a one-off event. It's a one-off chance. You don't get a chance to make amends. So whether it changes in times like these, I don't know. But I've just got a feeling that will be one of those things. If they can run, also you've got to run 3 races on a Sunday. They seem to keep all 3 races, so you've got to find time for them.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about running with all 3 races, actually. I think because we've already seen Moto2 and Moto3 this year, part of me in my head, I'm like, well, we know they can run. What's the problem? But obviously, that's not the case.
Yeah, and there's a lot of teams as well involved in that want to go. They've got sponsors that are relying on them and people that are relying on them for work and so on and so forth. So, I think they do everything they can to keep all championships going. If it can't be, obviously MotoGP is the crown jewel.
Yeah.
But let's not forget Moto2 and Moto3 are Grand Prix World Championships, so they'll want to keep it going just the same.
Fair enough. So if we dive in quickly, and let's assume we have races this year and everything's going to be back to normal come kind of July time. These are the basic questions I'm sure you're asked over and over again, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of answers that are long I don't knows again. But if we do see the racing go ahead, Marquez is clearly Marc Marquez. That is clearly the favourite for the championship. Is there anyone you can see over a truncated season managing to get in there and challenge him?
Yeah, over a shortened season, perhaps. Maybe an injury happens. Maybe his shoulder isn't as strong as he thought. I can see that. I can see Vinales being stronger this year. Looked like Yamaha might have fixed a couple of bits. It looked like it had a little bit more engine or something. Just I don't know, sorted out the electronics that bit more. Fabio Cuatraro is a de facto factory rider now, isn't he? With the deal having struck, I can't see him not supporting him. So there's a chance of him sticking in. And I think the Ducatis and a shortened season, if you have 2 races at Austria to start, well, that already starts well, doesn't it, for Dovizioso? So yeah, I think Suzuki's will be strong. When we did a press day at BT before the season began, and I was saying, keep an eye on the Suzukis this year, because I fancy them to spring a couple of surprises here and there. Experience every year, a little bit more, a couple of wins under the belt for Rins. But and Mir coming through, I rate Mir highly. Yeah. So yeah, I think there is a chance. I still would, if I was a betting man, I would 100% back Marquez. But I still think there is always a chance. Oh, look at it. Last year, it was Marquez was the only consistent one. The problem was people could beat him and they could have the odd race, but no one could do it consistently. On a shorter championship, there's more chance of someone doing it consistently, if that makes sense. Yeah. You don't have to sustain it for a 20 round. You have to sustain it for 5 or 8 or whatever. At a track that actually you already go well at, I think there is more of a chance.
I guess also the converse of that is at the same time, as if you do go down and you throw away your potential 25 points, you've thrown away maybe 20% of the points available to you.
Yeah, exactly. The percentage-wise, it means a lot more. Yeah, that's why when they were talking about having a longer championship, 20 races, and then going on to 22, we were saying, wait a second, you could have seasons over 6-7 races before the end. You could, in theory. It's less likely. The longer the season gets, it's less likely to go down to the final round, isn't it? Yeah. Because there's more chance of someone breaking away.
Every season we come on like a pre-season show, we're going to do a prediction. Both Tim and I say every year we want to see the championship decided at Valencia. Come down to that last corner, final bend, just that thriller, last corner thriller.
Yeah. That's what you want to see, don't you? And that's why some of the better seasons are ones like 2015, like 2006, are ones that come down to the final race.
Exactly.
Yeah. I remember, was it 2016? And we got to a halfway point and there was 5 riders within 25 points of each other. I mean, Steve were getting very excited. Like, imagine 5 riders going in within a race win of each other to Valencia. How great would that be?
It would, and I feel it. The problem is Marquez at the moment. Is just that little, because otherwise people are taking points off each other, left, right, and centre, and there's such a level there. So it's just getting them up to Mark or knocking Mark down a peg or 2. I don't think it's boring, by the way, which some people say. I think it's absolutely amazing racing, because it's just that Marquez is the step ahead, because there's a different challenger every single week, and there've been how many last lap races last year? 6, 7, 8, something like that.
Something like that line.
Yeah. So I don't think it's boring at all, but I still would say Mark for the championship, because I think you'd be mad not to.
Yeah, exactly.
And while we're on Mark, obviously he's joined by Alex this year, alongside, either this year or next year, I guess, alongside him in the Repsol squad. I was pretty convinced at the start of the year that we were going to see Alex Marquez standing on the podium. I think he's very underrated. I think people really hate on him quite a lot. And we know he doesn't get to speed as quick as his brother does, but he's a double world champion. And I was quite convinced we'd see him, but I don't know if you have an opinion on that, whether there was a chance. What do you think he was going to do in his rookie season, or will do potentially?
I don't think he'd have got a podium without it being a quirky race. If that makes sense, without it being a flag to flag where he's got it right or that sort of thing. But I don't know. He looked like he started all right on the bike. Like it suited him a little bit more. He's going to be getting help from his brother. Let's not forget. He's going to be getting. It's not like a teammate where I'll be doing everything I can to destroy the morale of my rival, who is my number one rival, is my teammate. It'll be, oh no, why don't you try this? Have you done this? Have you done that? It's always not the easiest. Being Marc Marquez's teammate is the worst job in the world in the MotoGP. Because you're onto a hiding. It's a hiding to nothing from the start, isn't it? But yeah, I wouldn't have seen a podium. I think top 10s and higher by the end of the year, top 6s maybe. Could have been possible. The Honda was working, but we never really got a chance to see where they were. And I remember the last test in Qatar, things weren't sounding great. Having chatted to Cal at length about it, things really didn't sound like it was in the best shape it could have been.
None of the Honda riders sounded that happy with the bike, the way it developed. And
exactly.
Didn't seem right with it this year.
Yeah, it sounded like Cal was frustrated that it was switching between bikes and nothing had been decided almost, and that's by Qatar. So it would have been interesting to see, but it's so hard to judge from testing. You can't read anything into testing because even in that week from Qatar to the race, things can change. And so, and what Honda do is they make an engine. They'll make the bike work around that as the season goes on and get stronger. So you don't know how things are going to develop. So, I wouldn't have said podiums though for Alex. No disrespect. I do think he's a very, very good rider. Obviously, he's a double world champion. Each time he's won the world championship, I think there've been better riders that season. But they didn't win the championship. So he has been the best. He has been the best rider. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think the people who should have done better, perhaps, like Brad Binder, should have won the title He missed out by 3 points.
Yeah, and I think KTM dropped the ball on that one.
KTM massively dropped the ball at the start of last year, and he wrestled them back into contention. But Alex is a 2-time world champion.
Yeah.
No, I've got no arguments whatsoever with that. The points, the whole point of the point system is that the person who has the most points has done the best over the year and becomes the world champion. It's amazing how it works.
Revolutionary, you could say.
I know. You wouldn't believe how it all gets decided.
Oh, dear.
And we've also seen recently the news of Alex Rins resigning until the end of 2022. Are we waiting on Mir to do the same? Has there been an announcement? I did have a look a few minutes ago, but I couldn't find any announcement.
I haven't seen an announcement yet. No. Everyone's saying it's a done deal that I've spoken to.
Okay.
However, I would add the caveat in there that I still think Ducati will be taking a long look at him. I don't think it'll happen now with the way the season's gone. I'm fairly sure they'll keep things in house there. I don't know. I can't see. I don't know. I just can't see. I can see a lot of people staying where they are pretty much. I know Cuatraro is supposed to be getting Valentino's ride and so on and so forth, but I can see it staying fairly similar across the board just because people haven't had a chance to have their contracts. So how can you sack someone? How can you get rid of someone from there? I don't know, but no one's doing anyone any favours. This is a business ultimately. But Mir, Suzuki want him, and I'm sure he's happy to stay there. So the bike's got to a point now where it's a risk to switch, isn't it? You don't know that. Is it going to be as competitive as Suzuki? I rate Mir higher than Alex Rins.
Okay.
I rate him. I think he is. This is personal. But since I saw him in Moto3 and he's actually in the Junior World Championship when he was there and he came and he he replace someone at the Leopard team that season that Danny Kemp won the championship and he was coming through and you saw him and you thought, hey, this kid's got something. He's got something special here. And and he obviously won the championship at Canter.
Yeah. And
then in Moto2 looked good straight away. It tailed off in the second half of the season, but he already knew he was going to MotoGP. But last year I was impressed by him as a rookie. hard when you've got Cuatraro doing what he did to stand out as rookie. But for me, in the paddock, you get a feeling when you talk to people and when you're around people of where people should be. And I felt that even despite the setback of that testing crash in Brno and injuries, and it was a nasty one, I felt he was surpassing expectations. That's what I felt was the paddock feeling about him. And I think people really do like the look of Mir, which is where I could see. Obviously, he can't go to Yamaha. He's not going to go to Honda. I honestly, originally, when Alex Marquez hadn't signed, I thought they might put Cal in for a year or something like that and try and go for a Mir. I honestly thought that would be the way they'd look at it, because I see him as someone, as the sort of person who could beat Marc.
Oh wow! Okay.
But I don't think that is going to happen now, because Alex is there, and I think Marc signed for 4 years. Alex will stay there, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, the only place I could see would be Ducati, but then I don't necessarily. As far as I understand, he's already signed for Suzuki. So.
Okay, so we're just kind of waiting on that announcement now.
Well, as Rins said to us on Sunday, I was supposed to announce it in Qatar or Argentina.
Okay.
So that was done. So it just come out there now. So I could see it similar happening for Mir.
Makes sense. They follow suit.
Yeah.
They like the rider, and I personally think he's been impressive without going too far. Just running up front in the first races in Qatar, he was already not far from the front, and then on occasion was right up there. And you think, hey, that shouldn't be. You shouldn't be doing that on a Suzuki at that stage of your MotoGP career.
No, and like you say, if it wasn't for Cuatraro, he would have been standout. He got that little overshadow at the top.
Yeah,
unfortunate.
Completely. Yeah, that's exactly it. But he's a factory bike compared to Cuatraro, so hats off to Cuatraro.
Yeah, exactly.
He was phenomenal last year.
That was, watching it, I'll tell you, watching some of the races, which just like, he shouldn't be there. How is he doing this?
Yeah. So most people wouldn't have put him on that bike. No. I wouldn't have. And I rate him, I always have done, but it had fallen away. Where was the evidence until he won that race in Barcelona?
Yeah, that's what me and Steve were saying last year, is we couldn't believe it. We were genuinely shocked that they had signed him to that ride. And I couldn't quite believe it.
Didn't he?
Well, just about,
Filled his boots, and all credit to him. And he's what a nice kid, what a breath of fresh air. Cool, young French kid who's going to be popular, and he's got it. He's just got that X factor. I can see him. I've already seen him taking over a Rossi kind of mantle.
Yeah.
Just in terms of charisma. He's just got something.
Got the haircut now as well.
We'll see if it happens, Yeah. We'll see if it happens. But I just think he has got something there.
Yeah. It's almost like he saw what Zarco was doing, and then it was a hold my beer moment.
Yeah, it was.
Definitely.
And obviously, you just mentioned he's got that the factory Yamaha contract for next year, depending on what goes on with all the contract situations, I guess. So this is another one of those who really knows the answer. But the Rossi situation, is there any rumblings of what's going on with that?
Well, in an interview he did with Matt Burt, it was I think they've got it on their Twitter. He said he wants to continue in 2021, and I could get that, because he wanted to take this year to decide. He wanted to have a look at how things were going, and he doesn't want to go out with a whimper. He wants a swan song world tour, doing all my greatest hits, waving to the fans, that kind of thing. Well, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you don't want to go out don't go out in a year like this where you haven't been able to show, what you're capable of. And so, I don't know how it would happen. I don't know whether and as I think it was Marc Marquez called for all contracts to stay the same for next year. For people to stay with the same team. And depending on how many races we get this year, I think that's not a bad option. Obviously, Cuatraro will have to go to the factory team, but it wouldn't be stretched, would it, to put him and Frankie together in that Sepang team? And however much he's a junior team, I'm sure Yamaha would be up for it, because they want Rossi as their ambassador for years to come. And the Sepang team has got Petronas. I'm sure they'd be delighted with it.
Yeah.
Get Get Monster involved in there as well, and jobs are good.
Yamaha is definitely looking strong all round.
Yeah, they are. They look. It's really well. They did it. Honestly, fair play to them. We got a lot of stick last year for the bike, for the technical side, but they've acted quickly to get the people they wanted on their bikes. Credit to them. Maverick was being eyed up by Ducati. Fabio was being eyed up by Ducati, and they've gone in and got their men. So credit to them for what they've done. It's a good job. They've done well. Got Jorge Lorenzo a test rider.
Yeah. Slightly gut. We're not going to see him at Catalonia for his wildcard.
Yeah, it would have been interesting, wouldn't it? It would have been interesting. But you never know. It may still happen. There may still be a Barcelona race, and he may well get a go on it. Depends what the contract is.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I said to Tim, Tim texted me as soon as it was announced. He's like, "If you see what's happening," I was like, "Get in the car, we are going."
Yeah, started planning our road trip across to Barcelona, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
I never felt he was retiring anyway, but that was my opinion.
You're opening a little conspiracy theories there, mate.
No, I just felt he wasn't ready for it.
Yeah,
I felt it was a kind of self-imposed because they had a shocking year, not up to his standards. Not a lot of it, not his fault. Injuries and all the things that were going on, not getting on with the bike and all that. But I just felt it's not the way he's like the Rossi Swan song. It's not the way he should be retiring. I still think he had. You don't go from being a race winner with a new factory 3 times to suddenly being a nobody. Not being able to score a point. So I felt that it was one of those. I can't do this anymore. And what I mean by that, I can't do riding a Honda in MotoGP anymore. But if Yamaha calling or Ducati again, oh well.
Yeah, we'll have another go. But watching on telly, it just did not seem right. Watching him switch to the Ducati and then the Honda, and watching it just seemed every race was just like, my God, what is going on? What is happening? He's going to do well this race. When Tim and I were saying like he's got to improve, something's going to happen, something's going to click. He's going to find that setting, and it just petered away every race. It just did not come, especially at Honda.
But it did at Ducati, didn't it?
Yeah,
it did. He won. He won races. He won in Italy, won in Barcelona. He won at Austria, and then got injured. So actually, he was back to where he should be, working out the bike, getting the bike. He changed his style a little bit, worked a little bit to get the Ducati working. And so you sort of think, what if? But,
another open-ended question.
Yeah, exactly. One none of us have the answers to.
No.
That's it. Right, mate. I think we've been going on longer than planned, and I'm sure you've got things you need to be doing this evening. So we'll.
I have a tendency to talk too much.
No, not at all. It's not a bad thing.
It's one of the what do you call it? Side effects of the job.
Yeah.
I don't know which came first.
We tend to our podcasts tend to turn into a lot of ramblings and rants and tangents and Formula One, and just generally just chit chat. It's more like two lads sitting on a sofa having a beer, to be honest.
That's pretty much covers it. Yeah.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? That's why we love sport and love MotoGP or any sport really. It's because how we feel about it and how it makes us connect with other people about it, and all got our own opinions and debates, and that's how people like me have jobs.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. But we'll let you get off, mate, and we'll let you enjoy what's left of your evening. So thank you very much for talking to us. Do you just want to let our listeners know where they can find you if they want to be following you? And obviously you've mentioned your podcast already. Yeah,
so I'm at Gavin Emmett on Twitter and on Instagram. I don't know. I mean, Instagram, I don't know what I do really on there. I just put up photos every now and then. And my podcast with Neil Hodgson's Gas It Out, and we've got some really lovely interviews in. We've just done one actually today with James Toseland, which is, I don't know if you listened to any Scott Redding, it was so heartfelt. Well, this one is one you just think, wow,
okay.
Just the things that he was telling us. And it's quite, we've been really light-hearted. This one, it's got light-hearted moments in it, but it's got some deep stuff as well, and it really opens up, which myself and Neil Hodgson were just blown away. So yeah, that's wherever you're listening to this podcast, I'm sure you'll be able to listen to that there too.
Yes, exactly. And that Scott Redding episode was some of the, it's the best MotoGP journalism I think I've listened to this year so far. I think that was great. It was fantastic, and it was nice to hear Scott talking like that as well.
Yeah, it really is, and that that's it was when we were listening to it, thinking, wow, he's opening up, and I've known him since he was 13, 14 when he was in the academy, and met all the kids when they came into Dorna, and and Neil's known him a long time, and that's the best I've ever heard him talk. I've always liked chatting to Scott, so. Yeah, but JT follows it up. I mean, Johnny Ray was a similarly interesting, said a few things, but JT just really some amazing, so we say, mental health questions that he's asking himself or asked himself, and that were quite fascinating. Honestly, really fascinating.
Up to the Johnny Ray episode, I've got the others to catch up on tomorrow.
Yeah, there's a lot. We've been firing them out actually. Just you can tell that there's two people, myself and Neil, that are used to being busy. Being locked in the house. Right, what can we do? What can we do?
Start a podcast. Get on it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we were doing something with BT anyway, in a video form this year. We put one out with Cal, Inside Track. We were supposed to be doing those instead, but because we couldn't do them, we just said, look, should we go ahead and we'd come together. We'd already been planning to do something. Unfortunately we weren't able to continue with those, so we just thought, let's just we were sat around like you guys, I'm sure, thinking, I want to talk about this. We want other people to let us know what they think, and that's where it all comes from, isn't it? So
that's it, exactly.
Hit the nail on the head there. It's basically what we do.
Just have a chat. Bit of chat in it. That's what it's all about.
That's it, exactly.
But cheers anyway. Yeah, thanks very much for having me on.
Yeah,
thank you very much for coming on.
That's
very much appreciated.
Yeah,
no worries.
Good to chat.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your lockdown, and I hope that this is all over soon enough for you.
Yeah, fingers crossed. You two, both of you, and stay safe. I know everyone's saying that, and it sounds glib and twee, but
that's it.
It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Look after yourself, mate, and have a good one.
Cheers.
Take
Thanks
care,
very
buddy.
much.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
See you later, bud.
Right, thank you very much there to Gavin Emmett. I think that's quite an insightful conversation we had there.
That was really good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, and it's nice to speak to people in the paddock that, like we were saying about Simon, it's nice to speak to people who do actually know what's going on and aren't just us just spouting off very uninformed opinions about things.
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to get the opinion of someone who is there on the ground, sees everything that's happening.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to make assumptions. And he sees everything that happens when the camera's off.
Yeah, exactly.
And can bring us all those little bits that we'll never ever get to appreciate.
Yeah, it's that tidbit about Mir, because I felt thoroughly unimpressed by Johan Mir last year, and within the paddock, obviously people rate him very, very highly. So it's just something that we're not seeing well on the screen at the moment.
Yeah, we only see what we're shown. TV time is going to be given to the guys at the front, and the director's telling them to point the camera at.
Yeah.
We don't see how well someone's doing behind the scenes. I quite like Mir, and I thought he did start to improve last year. But it definitely sounded like Gavin was far more impressed with him and rated him far higher than what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And he's the man that knows. So
exactly. Listen to his opinion, not ours.
Yeah, that's it.
But yeah, great to have you on. Much appreciated, and thank you again for coming on.
Yes, yeah, very grateful for that. And like we say, I think it was a great chat. For
Yeah, that was
those
good.
listeners out there who haven't checked out the Gas It Out podcast yet, it's not like we want you to leave us, so please do come back. But it is certainly worth a listen. It's a really good show, and they get some great conversations with some really big names within the motorcycle world.
It's definitely worth a listen. We both listen to it and we chat about it. That's a great guest on. Give it a listen.
Yeah, maybe if this lockdown keeps going for too much longer, mate, all our shows will just be review shows of his podcast.
It might be. What did you do this week? I listened to Gas It Out podcast. What do you do?
That's it.
We listened to Gas It Out, right? Let's review their show. Just one bracket. It was better than ours.
That's fair. Let's not try and turn too many of our listeners away from us. But certainly, if you are missing your racing hit right now and you haven't listened to it, it's definitely worth it. It's a great show, and I've been very much enjoying it.
Yeah, they don't have stickers to give away.
Don't give them ideas, mate. They've got a better logo than we have.
Are they?
Yeah, I quite like their picture. Anyway. They're not paying us for the advertising here, so let's cut that one. We'll be dropping Gavin his invoice.
You wait, I'm going to get one for the post.
Yeah, that's it. Right, so I think that's about it. We haven't really got anything else to say. There's not really been any new news or anything. So
there's nothing. Lockdown life is very quiet.
Yeah, it is getting that way. But there we are. It's all fun and games. It will be over soon. So. We hope you're all out there are staying safe. We hope you're not climbing the walls too much yet, not getting too bored. But we do have we have our little sticker giveaway that we're doing at the moment. If any of you want to share with us using the hashtag FTLOMotoGP, share with us pictures or videos of what you're doing in your downtime to kind of get through your racing hit, then do so, and we'll be picking out our favourites and pinging stickers off to you. Like we said in the last episode, I can't promise you when we'll get them away. I feel like going to pick up stamps is not an essential thing right now. Next time the sun's out and I'm going to pick up my essential beer and barbecue setup, I'll get some stamps. But until then, but then even when the lockdowns are, if you're out of the UK, then I don't know how long things are going to take to get to you.
No,
but
we will
be
get them out to you.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll just be that nice surprise that'll drop on the map. Like, I forgot about these.
Yeah, it's 3 months later.
Yeah, probably.
That's it. And if and when the season does start, we have our MotoGP Fantasy League set up on the official MotoGP Fantasy website, so you can find that if you sign up, and you can join our league using the code 56V77CDR, all in caps, but I'll put that in the show notes again for you guys, so you don't have to just rewind this outro over and over again to try and remember it. But yeah, I think until we come to you next time, guys, stay safe, look after yourselves, and we'll speak to you soon.
Take care, guys.
Goodbye.
See you soon.